Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sporting Max, where today we are joined by Collingwood Magpies legend and AFL legend. He's also in the Collingwood Magpies Hall of Fame, Tony Shaw. Welcome to the podcast, Tony. It's an absolute honour to have you on. How you going at the moment?
Yeah, good. A bit hectic. Had a bit of moving new house for a couple of days, so a little bit busy, but can't wait for footy season to start again.
Me too. I mean, I believe you had a career in basketball. Can you elaborate on that a little? And was it down Geelong way?
No, not down Geelong way. Coburg.
No? Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, no, I was lucky enough to play for the Coburg Giants. I nearly lived at the Coburg Basketball Stadium when I was a young kid. I played football too and cricket, of course, and that's what we did in those days. But yeah, I played state under 14, 16 and 18. And at 17 years of age, probably because I was vertically challenged, the decision to go with football was pretty easy, really. But look, I did love my basketball, and I've got no doubt it helped my footy in a number of ways. But yeah, had a ball and met a lot of friends and a lot of people, lifelong friends. So yeah, just another area that a lot of people probably didn't know about.
So what was your childhood like and growing up like for you in Reservoir?
Yeah, great. No, I one of 6 kids in the Housing Commission area in Reservoir is pretty tough. Mum and Dad didn't have a lot, but they got us. They always supplied, so that's what it was. They were hard days, but look, we went to pretty good schools. They always pushed us in the sport. Probably taught us a couple of life lessons, which are really important. Mainly about having good manners, hopefully, and showing respect till people don't deserve the right. So, yeah, and look, like I said, we were a sporty family. It wasn't much every Sunday in cricket season that the whole Keon Park cricket side would be in our lounge room on a Sunday night having a roast and a few drinks. So, yeah, it was great upbringing. And I was lucky enough. I was very... I was brought up with very successful organisations, as in the Coburg Basketball Stadium, Keon Park Stars Footy Club, and Keon Park Cricket Club, which all had really good administration. So they taught us lessons about, we wanted to be competitive, but you knew you couldn't win all the time.
So what were your greatest skills as a junior in football?
Well, I played, you wouldn't believe it, I played centre forward.
Wow.
Under 16. So, look, I could always get the ball. That was probably the main thing. But I was fairly big for for that age. And then I stopped growing, of course, and then became a midfielder. I also did a little athletics. So I was a long distance runner, and I love running. I never found running an issue, probably because my mum and dad never drove. They never had a car in my whole lifetime. So, yeah, it's unusual, isn't it? But I think it was great because we had to either walk, run, ride a bike, or get a lift from or public transport. So that sort of taught us other lessons too. So that's probably where the fitness part built up.
Can you sort of guide me through your path to the AFL?
Yeah, well, I went down. I played Northern Footy League. The PDJFA, Preston District Footy League, right through from under 10s to under 16s. Won a few premierships, which was great, and had the opportunity to play at Preston Oval in those premierships. Then I went down to Collingwood under 19s, and I walked out because they had an 8-quarter practice match, and I never got on till I was going to go on the 8th quarter, and I'd seen blokes who I'd beaten. I was pretty dirty. So one of my best mates was probably the best footballer I've seen, junior footballer. Unfortunately, did an ACL. We both walked out. Yeah, so he never played. He played again, but he was never the same because in those days the ACLs were hard to get over. And then I was lucky. I went back Reservoir Lakeside in the Diamond Valley, which was a tough competition. It's now the Northern Footy League. I played against men, and I think if I had made under 19s, I don't know whether my development accelerated in that year. And I was lucky enough to play. I was lucky enough to play in a senior A grade Diamond Valley Premiership with Reservoir Lakeside, and that was their last year. I think as Reservoir Lakeside, they amalgamated and became West Preston Lakeside. So, yeah, look, it was a great year for me. Winning a premiership and playing against men, and like I said, you had to harden up pretty quick. And then I went back to Collingwood the next year. Ronnie Richards gave me an opportunity, and Ray was captain, or Ray was down there, of course, so that probably helps. But I played 12 reserves games the next year, about 4 or 5 senior games, one final, and I got dropped the next week. So,
Wow.
so that was in 1978. So there you go.
Like I said, sort of getting 4 or 5 regular season games in a final and then getting dropped the next week. How did you find settling in to the Collingwood side and earning your spot in the team?
Yeah, well, that's a good point because I was pretty dirty about getting dropped because I thought my career was coming to the end. Look, I didn't have a lot of ability, but I knew what my strengths were. But, I had to fight pretty hard for a couple of years. Probably 1983, I ran the Big M Melbourne Marathon in 3 hours 20 with in the off season with a teammate of mine, Mark Hannabury. And look, in 1984, training and everything was just a walk in the park. So I found a new level of physicality that I could go to. And I won my first Copeland Trophy in 1984, I think by about 6 votes.
Yeah.
And then I also played my first state game.
Wow. So what was that like to, get your first Copeland Trophy under the belt?
Yeah, it was good. Like I said, I thought I played okay for the 3 or 4 years, but you got to remember also in that period I played in 2 losing grand finals in 1981. So it was pretty disappointing, and I didn't know where we were going after that. I thought we'd play grand finals all year, every year and win one. But yeah, I was growing steadily as a player, and then of course 85 was when Lee Matthews came in and I was made captain, and that was a great honour. And then that was it. I always believed that I could, look, every time I went over the white line, and I don't want to sound big-headed, but my preparation, I always felt confident in my preparation. I always felt that if I went over the white line, that I could beat whoever I'm playing on. Now, I was proven wrong a number of times, but hopefully to play 313 games, you'll probably prove them wrong the other way.
So you mentioned those 2 losing grand finals in 1980 and 1981. What were those seasons like for you? We unfortunately couldn't get to secure the premiership, but also what was that grand final heartache like?
Look, you just don't want to go through it. Like I said, I was probably pretty lucky myself. Peter Dacos and Dennis Banks as young players coming from Preston and Reservoir to play in those finals. We thought it was going to keep continuing. We had a number of older players who were probably coming to the end of their career, but like I said, it's you can't put it into words, the disappointment, because that's all you play the game for. Individual things happen, but that's what it's about. And like I said, from 81, it took us another 9 years to get there, mate. So, it was a bloody hell of a long time.
So you mentioned 1984. I mean, that was a standout season from I guess, the outside world's point of view from football, winning your first Copeland Trophy, VFL's Team of the Year. What work did you do? Obviously, you ran that Melbourne Marathon prior in the off-season. It was a walk in the park. But what training do you think you actually did in the off-season that helped you prepare to come in and dominate this season?
I did a bit of sprint training, and then I also did some speedball stuff, punching a speedball, but for long periods of time, up to 45 minutes non-stop. And my upper body was good. I always did a lot of sit-ups and push-ups. I wasn't a weights person because I had a big body anyway, but, I was solid. So I didn't like weights. I found them a bit boring. But long distance, I did a bit of sprint work, which also had stamina in it, and that was run by a bloke called Bobby Newton, who was our sprint coach for 10 years, and he's the brother of Bert, who just passed away. So Bobby was fantastic for me, and look, a lot of other people, of course, but those sort of things. In the end, you know what your strengths are. My kicking and skill, I knew I could be okay over 30, 35, but I had to be smart at giving the ball probably to other players who could use it better by foot.
So when Lee Matthews came in and you were named captain, what did that mean to you, to be named captain of the Collingwood Football Club?
Oh, look, it was magnificent. My brother was captain. I played under a number of captains. There was also David Cloak and Mark Williams there at the time, and Lee could have picked them. I think Mark had a bit of a falling out with Lee. Lee wanted him to play forward, and I think he wanted to be midfield, so he left the club after that. And Clokey went back to Richmond later, but a couple of years in. But look, they were fantastic to me. Gave me a lot of support, and I'll be playing that state basketball. I always believed that leadership didn't worry me. I thought I tried to do the right thing most of the time, but you still got to get the nod. Yeah, it was just a great honour.
So in 1990, you captained the club to its first premiership in 33 years, to get the Collywobbles off your back, beating Essendon in this historical season. Now, they had 15 premierships by that stage. Can you sort of take me through this historical season for you and the club and the grand final from your perspective?
Oh, look, 32 years. We hadn't won a premiership. We'd been, I think we've been a pretty good team. We made finals but never won them. So we gave value for money in a lot of ways, but it's only about the ultimate. My brother Ray, I think, played in 5 losing ones. Rene King played in 6. There's some great people who played in a lot of losing grand finals, and they deserve better. But, to think 9 years after that, 1981, that we get an opportunity and get it done, unbelievable. Look, we recruited well. We had Craig Kelly, Michael Christensen. We had Tony Francis, Scotty Russell came in, Dougie Barwick came from the other side. Even like Mickey Gopher came from North Melbourne, and people thought, how minutes game. But everybody played their part. And then you had Dacos, Mullane, McGuire, Monkey in the ruck with James Manson. We were a really tough side, but we had ability too. People said that we weren't the greatest side to win it, but, that doesn't count now, does it?
No. 35 touches on ground in this grand final. You earn yourself the Norm Smith medal. What did winning the Norm Smith medal and, your first premiership mean to you?
Oh, look, I went down on all fours after the siren went and everybody said you were crying. But, no, look, it was just a bloody relief that we weren't losers again as an organisation. A little bit of the short name then because we hadn't had a lot of success. And, Keith, of course, was going to later play in a grand final for Collingwood. We didn't know that. And Reshaw, of course, played for Sydney Swans. So look, it was just after that period of time to see the joy on the faces of a lot of Collingwood people, a lot of volunteer people who just did it for the love, to see the joy that they had. It was just sensational, and that's what we played the game for. And to think that, 19 other blokes I'll have this association with now for the rest of my life, plus Lee as a coach, goes with you to the grave. I wish I'd played in a few others, but it didn't happen. And I think, that was it. 4 years later, I'd finished.
I want to get into your 50 disposals in a game in 1991 against the Brisbane Bears. At the time, it was actually the second best disposals in a game in history, trailing Greg Williams, 53 disposals in a game. Do you remember this game?
Yeah, I do. I remember that, but I also, I think, had 51 against Geelong, but people forget about it. So I think I've done it twice. I did it twice in my career. But, look, I joked that I was in the toilet at halftime and the ball dropped in my lap, So, so look, it was just one of those days where everything goes right. You could be running in the wrong position and the ball would come to you. But look, the one thing I say to young kids is I had a bit of a big mouth on the footy field, but when you verbalise and loud, you will receive the ball off people. But if you don't, and they don't know you're there or they don't know you're coming, it's a great trait to have. And I used to try and do a little bit of that by singing while I was running, to myself in a way. Yeah. But I understood that I could do that. If you can verbalise while you're under strain and you're out of breath and whatever, you're a chance of getting another 5 to 10 possessions where you wouldn't if you're a very quiet player.
In the years to come, you had, a few injuries. What were these injuries and how did you sort of get past them to move on with your career?
Well, I was very lucky. I never missed a game for my first 9 years. Never through injury. I've missed a couple of his suspension, but that's a different thing. But, I had dislocated elbow. I had a couple of little medial ligaments, knee and ankle, but I did them out of off-season. That's why I never missed games in season. I had a back problem later in my career where sometimes when I bent over, if I had a weakness there, I couldn't straighten up and I had to go under medication to get it manipulated. So I'm still paying a bit of a price with that now, but that's what you do. You wouldn't take it back at any time. I broke my nose a number of times. I've had 2 operations on my nose. But that's what happens when you leave with your head, So, I was very lucky. I was very lucky on the injury stakes.
You mentioned being suspended for a couple of games in your sort of first 9 years in the league. What did you get suspended for?
I didn't think I was guilty, but they said I. No, I think I gave Roger Merritt an elbow to the head. I hit Julio with an open hand. They said it was. Yeah, look, just these things that happen. I think it was 4 times in my career, so it wasn't too bad over 7 years.
I've read that in 1993, you were considering retiring, then deciding to play on. How did you sort of make that decision? And in your mind, there's that sort of reluctance to retire and then play on?
Oh, look, if I didn't think I could do it, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have gone on. But matter of fact, it was pretty cruel in a way because good mate Peter Dacos and myself, Dakes had a few injuries with his ankles and I didn't know how far he could go. So, at any time, a fit Peter Dacos and a fit Tony Shaw, you're picking Dakes. There's no doubt about that. But he had injury issues that they thought were long-term. So they picked me over Dakes. And, I appreciate that 1 year, but it wasn't to be. My last game was over at WA and we lost the final and I broke down with a calf injury, which probably one of my little regrets. I had a fitness test, got through that, and but it's not the same as going into a game and testing yourself at that real pressure level. And I was disappointed with that, but that was it, 94. So I would have loved to have played off another final, another grand final.
So what was it like to play with someone like Peter Dacos?
Oh, mate, look, he's the greatest player I've seen at Collingwood. There's a bloke called Phil Carman who was amazingly talented, but just didn't have the discipline that was needed. But super talent. But no, if Peter Dacos could win your game in 5 minutes. He was a very good midfielder before he did his knees. So a lot of people forget that early in his career, and then he became, of course, one of the greatest goal kickers. He kicked 97 in that 1990 season. Now, he probably should have won the Copeland Trophy or gone close to it, but thank God he didn't, and I did. So, but 97 goals from a small forward, that's something like, the Lee Matthews and, those types of players had done. He was an out-and-out superstar.
Now, I believe it was in round 18, 1994, you broke the club games record held by Gordon Coventry at 306 games. I mean, this is a great milestone. What was that game like for you to break Gordon Coventry's record?
Yeah, don't talk to me about the record breaking. It was 306 and then it was 313 at the end. And, we lost both games, so I was pretty dirty on it. But, it was great honour. Nuts Coventry was seen as one of the greatest of all time and just goes down. And to hold that for, 24 years, I think I held it before Pendles. You don't mind getting beaten by a bloke like Pendles, so, they don't last forever, records, but I had a good run at it, let me tell you that.
So you mentioned that last game of yours, that heartache. I think it was losing a final to the West Coast Eagles at the Wacker. What was that like in your final game where you just couldn't get the job done?
Yeah, look, like I said, I in hindsight, should I have played? I don't know, but I got through the fitness test through Lee and I got injected in even the night before. As a matter of fact, my fitness test was in the hallway of a hotel, so that's up and down. And I didn't feel it, but then 5 or 10 minutes into the game, I just ripped the hell out of it. And they tried to inject me everywhere to get it going, and I just couldn't do it. So look, it was disappointing, but one thing I got out, got a good photo, and I probably didn't want to see me a few tears in the eyes, but a great kid who I've had enormous respect for, Nathan Buckley. I coached him, trained, played with him 1 year, and coming off the ground, he's got his arm around me, consoling me, and I think that's one of my best photos that I've got. And I don't have any. I don't have any photos up, matter of fact, but I do have the old scrap albums and that's one of the greatest photos. But yeah, it was a regret.
After retiring at the end of that season and 2 years out of the game, you returned to Collingwood, like you mentioned, as head coach in 1996. How did that opportunity to return to the club you love come about?
Lee had sort of said he had enough after 10 years. He always said 10 years was a long time. I wish I'd been able to survive 10 years. No, and look, I could have gone to Carlton. I had the reserve job at Carlton, and I knocked it back because I just loved the club. But in hindsight, I probably should have gone to Carlton. I would have been assistant coach to David Parkin. And it was just me saying yes, I'll take it, and I had it. So I didn't go that road, and it was quite interesting that I think Ken Judge coached the reserves at Carlton. They won a wooden spoon, so it would have been a hard year. But the Carlton seniors won the grand final, so that would have been good to be involved and then maybe come back. But I stayed at Collingwood as development coach under Lee, and they just thought what I was doing, they were happy with that, and Once Lee said he wasn't going to go on, I just went through the rigmarole of having a few talks to him, and they thought I was the man, and didn't work out for me over 4 years. But look, no recriminations. Would I have done things differently? Yeah, maybe. Lee told me he didn't leave me a lot, but I don't worry about that. I had to make them better, and I had success. That was like I said, no recriminations with the club at all. I had 4 years and I didn't get it done. I thought we played some good footy in the first two. I lost Nathan Buckley and Scotty Burns for a fair bit the last 2 years, but one player doesn't make you a good team. But that's life, and you learn by your mistakes. And would I do it better the second time round? I won't get an opportunity, of course, but I think I would have, no doubt.
So what do you think, what differences do you think you would have made now, knowing, if you had got the opportunity the second time round?
Look, I was a defensive player in basketball and football, as in I tried to stop the best players and opposition and get the ball myself. But I was a very attacking coach. So we were the highest scoring side, or equal highest in the second year. My first year we were the highest scoring, but we got scored against. And I didn't identify that the defensive part of the game was changing. And that's probably where I would have put more time. And a lot of senior players who I played with and then coached, I just didn't give them enough time, because I had enormous faith in their ability to do things, but they need time just as much as anybody else. A first game or a bloke who's played 300 games, they need the same amount of time. So they're the two things. And like I said, I got no worries. 4 years didn't work, and we moved on, and Mick Moldhouse took over.
Being named in the Collingwood team of the century on the bench, what does that mean to you?
Oh, gee whiz. Look, to think over the history of Collingwood, to think that I even got a game, all right, you might be the game record holder for a fair while, premiership captain, but to think that I'm in, maybe the top 22 players, as in talent-wise, I sort of keep, it's a joke in a way. Our history, we've had a lot more players with a lot more ability than me, but I did what they did, and they saw it that way. So, it's great, and we just go on. But then the Australian Footy Hall of Fame, I got involved, picked in that, and that was just sensational for a bloke who had lacked a lot of the attributes that you need, probably.
When things are going around the media in the league, you're a guy to go, a go-to guy for quotes and things like that. How do you find when you may have to be critical of the club that you played and coached for?
Oh no, you learn that quick. Matter of fact, I thought in my first couple of years in the media, maybe I was too critical of Collingwood, not to show bias. But you've just got to be balanced. If you believe something, you say it. And I've talked to Eddie McGuire about it, and sometimes he goes, "Tony, you're a famous Collingwood player. Why are you doing?" And I say, "Mate, if you believe something, it's all about credibility, I think." Sometimes you'll throw things out there which you hear as something, but to me, most of the time, it's what I believe. So if you're honest up front, and look, I look at it, it doesn't diminish my love of Collingwood Footy Club either way. It doesn't diminish my love of the players at the club, but individuals do the wrong thing. And I'm asked to quote on it. I'll have my opinion.
So what's it like to know Eddie McGuire and then unfortunately him leave the club?
Oh yeah, look, I think it was time in the end, but I think it's the whole thing's changing. So maybe some fresh blood in the whole board, coaching staff, all that. You've got to keep regenerating things. So, Ed did a top job. We were broke when he took over. He turned that around. We won a premiership under him. We were very competitive for a long period of time. He's done a great job, but, maybe held on a couple of years too long, and probably could have done it a little bit better in the end. But look, he'll go down. He's a Collingwood Life member, and he'll go down one of the greatest presidents the game's ever seen.
So how do you find being on radio and on air?
Oh, great. Yeah, look, it's to think at my age, and look, I'm only 61. It's not like I'm 120. To think that I'm making a living out of talking about the game, and they still believe I can do it. That's the main thing. I was with Foxtel for 16 years, and then I changed a few things in my personal life, as in, we're going into real estate, so I couldn't do Foxtel. And then, 21 years I've been at 3AW. I think I know the games pretty well. it's a game which can test you about the look of it. But that's what happens when we went defensive and all the coaches. We can change rules. You can do what you want. The main thing is coaches are always going to try to win. And if they have to win ugly, they'll do it. So that's what they're getting paid for.
You mentioned going into sort of real estate after Foxtel. What's that like for you being in the real estate market?
Oh, great. It's that. I've got a few other things, as I said, with the radio and a lot of odds and ends that I do. But, look, it's good. I'm a part owner of McGuire's in Greensboro, Eltham. And, look, we're going well. We've got a great staff, a group of people who are just so passionate about what's going on. And they probably make up for a few of my lapses, let me tell you that. So, look, it's what it is. I like keeping busy. As I said, I've just moved home for hopefully the last time before I go into a home. So, mate, it's all life just keeps going. I've got 6 grandkids now under 10.
Wow.
All my kids have done really well, and they've all got their own home. So that's a bonus. I've never had a massive issue with any of them. And now the 6 grandkids, so they take their spot, and we have this cycle. It just keeps going, rolling around.
Your son, Braden Shaw, was drafted for Collingwood. Unfortunately, I didn't get a game, but it's to my understanding and belief that you witnessed him captain the Bundoora Football Club to a Division 1 premiership. What was this like?
Oh, gee, probably the most emotional thing. I didn't cry when we won the 1990 premiership, but I remember crying at that game. And he had a kick in the backside when he never played a game, which is pretty hard. And you sort of think about how's he going to cope with that, knowing the Shaw name and that. He did brilliantly. He's got a brilliant job. He's been involved in footy now. I think he was captain for about 11 years of his played in 2 premierships. He then went to Hurstbridge. He was captain there. He's now a senior assistant. Sorry, he's helping the senior coach there. They won a premiership 3 or 4 years ago. They're now in Division 1. So everywhere he's been, he's had an impact. And I've never heard a bad word about how he goes about it. And he's just shown leadership. And I don't know if it rubs off or whatever, but I think hopefully we taught the lessons to him and my 2 daughters that my parents taught to our 6 kids.
Now, nephews Heath and Reece Shaw, I mean, you must be proud that, they've gone on to win premierships and playing at different clubs. Do you think there was ever an opportunity, where you could have potentially played for another club?
Yeah, I didn't. I probably got, I think it was about, 7 years in my career, I got offered to go to Hawthorn. But that was because a Collingwood administrator went over to Hawthorn and tried to get me across. So, at that time, I didn't really worry about it too much. If it had come along, I got to say, my brother Ray could have. He retired very early, at 27, but he didn't want to play. I think North Melbourne came to him, said, "Do you want to play with that?" And he couldn't play against his teammate. Well, I'm a bit different. If it happened, I think I could have gone. But I'm happy to be known as a one-team player. And the other 2 boys, they did their time at their clubs and did really well. Like, Reece left to win a premiership, and then Heath, of course, won one and goes and finishes off for another 7 years. But look, they're very good players. That's what they are. They're old man. They've got a lot of his ability, and so there we go.
I hear it's your wife Debbie's birthday, and you've recently become a grandfather again. Can you tell me what family's been like for you in your career and after?
Gee, you must have been listening in, mate, about my wife. Doesn't like me mentioning her.
I've got me sources.
That's the way. We've known each other since, she was under 12 captain of Little Athletics, and I was under 12 boys captain of a Little Athletics. And we're coming up to 40 years of marriage. So, but look, fantastic wife, mother, brilliant mother, grandmother. And look, she came from a football family in a way, so she probably knew what it was about. But our family is so important. Yeah, look, if we all know if anything happened, you just got to ring and you get support. We go pretty deep. Now the in-laws are involved, but we all get on pretty well. There's never been an issue, and life's good. And yeah, we just had our 6th grandson. We've got 5 grandsons and 1 granddaughter, the poor girl, but she holds her own. She holds her own, Lara, and Cooper just came into the world a couple of months ago. So we had a bit of a break there of about 4 years. So it's exciting again, and we'll see what happens in the future.
So what's it like to be a grandfather?
No, it's great. I love it. I love getting involved with them. I sit behind the bench, but I'm pretty competitive. We play basketball and footy, and the problem is when I play footy with them, they want me to kick the ball, and they think I'm a commentator, not a. So every time I kick the ball, I've got to commentate that, and one of them wants to be Dusty Martin. So I got to, and Dusty's on the half forward flank at the MCG. He kicks across his, but no, he's kicked the point. So I've got to do it for about an hour and a half. It kills you, but no, look, I love it, and hopefully we'll grow great, age gracefully, and they can come along for the ride.
Don't want to be any former Collingwood players?
Well, we'll just see. Look, they've all got ability, but they're all different. They're pretty competitive. Yeah, they want to win. They know they're like kids. Like when you're talking about 9, 8, and 7-year-olds, boys, they all play footy and they're playing basketball. They know when people say we don't keep score, but they know.
Yeah,
kids know when they're ahead and when they're winning, and they'll be just a disappointment to lose. But I like to. We play basketball. Sometimes I might take a backward step a little bit. Other times I knock them off just to give them say, okay, how do you relate to this now,
Yeah. This little bit here is from the rumour files back in 1995. I believe you ran into a tree out on the run, as you're known for going for great distance runs. Was it Damien Monkhurst who dropped the bag of sawdust at your doorstep claiming they'd got the person who attacked you?
Yeah, no, that was a bit rough, mate. I think that was my 4th marathon, and I didn't train for it, and I was trying to run a sub-3, and that was stupid. But my sugar levels went down to a bad level, so I ran into the tree because I was blind at the time. Because what happens when your sugar levels go down like a diabetic, you go blind, and hit it. But a couple of days later, I go out to get the paper. There's a load of sawdust on my lawn with a sign. Got the bugger for you, Shorey, but there you go.
What would be your best advice to anyone who wants to be a footballer or a coach and be successful like yourself?
Gee whiz. I think kicking is so important now. No, like you don't have to kick long.
Yeah.
You're efficient in whatever you do as you're kicking. One, if you haven't got a competitive spirit and it doesn't hurt you, losing and you want to win, you're going to struggle. But I think kicking. And the training's it. You can train to a level which other people won't. So you'll find them out. So that's what I did. I think my preparation was the main thing. That I survived on. And I think looking back now, I think I was in the top 4, maybe 4 to 6 players. For a long time, I was number 1 over distance stuff.
Yeah.
But right through my whole career, I was in the top 6, I think, in those sort of tests. So that just showed I still held it. But yeah. I love my running. Like I said, after the marathon, but even before then, I loved running. And probably, like I said, the background of not having bikes and we ran everywhere or walked everywhere, and Mum didn't have a car, Dad didn't have a car.
So what was, back to what you mentioned before, what's running marathons like for you?
I loved it. Look, I did one for charity where I raised about, I think, $65,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it. I mentioned on 3AW I was going to do it, and I said I need some sponsors, and I had a lot of opposition teams say, we'll sponsor you. We just want to see you go through pain. But 65, that was for Challenge Cancer Group, that's my charity, my charity. And I've known Dave Rogers, the bloke, the CEO of Challenge for 30 odd years. Wow. And all the players and myself used to go into the Royal Children's into the cancer ward to buy presents for the kids and just try and pick them up. And I think a lot of AFL clubs do that brilliantly and don't get enough credit, matter of fact.
Thanks, Tony, for coming on the podcast today and putting aside, 40 minutes or so of your time to come on and have a chat. It's been an absolute honour.
No worries, Max, because having moved into the house yesterday, I've got plenty to do and I probably need. I appreciate it. Thanks, Bob.
All right, thanks, Tony. Stay tuned, everyone, for some more Sporting Max.